cabin. You're gonna grab your toothbrush, toothpaste, get dressed, and head down to the bathroom.
Man, that sure would wake me up. My name is Isaiah Collins, and I was a camp leader at outdoor school, and my name was Breeze.
Hi, I'm Lucas Nagle. I volunteered twice, once during week 6 where I taught Seaside, Warrenton, and Gearhart schools, and on week 9 where I taught Five Oaks, and I was named Finch both times. Our Pacifica project was on outdoor school where we were student leaders. It took place in Vernonia, Oregon. Cedar Ridge is a branch of the Northwest Regional Education Service District. This organization helps student learning by providing equitable access to services and support.
After a loud wake-up call, we would escort the children to the bathrooms. And then after the bathrooms, we would take them to the dining hall, which looks like this, and they would have their breakfast. Then after we were all dismissed and we went to their cabins, which looked like this, so they could find their seating arrangements. On week 9, there were only 17 student leaders, which are us, and there were over 240 children that came. And that was on a split week, which means that 100 children came on Monday and left Wednesday afternoon, and then the next 140 children came after them and left Friday.
That meant there were a lot of kids to watch, and each cabin had about 9 to 12 kids in it. Luckily for me, I had a co-counselor named Peaches, but she was a girl, and since we had a boys' cabin, that meant I was responsible for being in the cabin with them and making sure they did the things that they needed to do, getting dressed, making sure they had the right clothes for the right field study, and getting them to bed. Those are things you might do in a cabin.
For me, I had a co-counselor named Lilu, and we did a great job collaborating many times and balancing the tasks we each had. Usually, I made sure that we were on time and went to the right places by leading the cabin. Some of the smaller tasks that I did included making sure everyone actually went to the bathroom, or making sure the cabin constitution, which is a set of rules that everyone promises to follow, was written and signed by everyone in the cabin.
After that, after they were assigned their bunks in the cabin they were assigned to, they gathered the necessary items that they might need for their field study. Field studies were areas where the 6th graders went to learn something, or not something, but the 4 areas of science, or nature. So we had water, forest, earth, and wildlife. And here you have a picture of our forest field group, where we each had our own section where we taught about things like tree succession, photosynthesis, and identifying local plants in the area, all while hiking.
Similarly, I had a water field study in which I had to organize children on a hike along a creek called Rock Creek, and I had to make sure they didn't fall in, which was kind of hard. I taught them about the pH levels of the water. We got samples from it on our hike, and then I also taught them about how much dissolved oxygen is in the water to see if it is healthy for the fish to live in it. Some other things I did was teach them what watersheds are and how they work, and also what a keystone species are and how salmon is one of them.
On these field studies, we not only learned about organization skills, we also learned about time management. Because sometimes when we fell behind on time, we had to shorten the field studies. So that means we had to do what we originally learned to do in an hour and a half and do it in an hour, which meant we had to keep kids focused and on track.
Keeping the children's focus was extremely necessary in order to teach them everything we needed to do. While I was leading my groups to the water field studies, the teachers from the schools would often follow us and comment things that I was saying. The importance of these field studies was that the education we were giving them was additional schooling to what they were learning. And also, some of them never have a chance to get out of the urban cities that they live in. So this was a great chance for them to get into nature and get some hands-on experiments. The teachers sometimes liked the ways I described certain examples, and also they liked how easy it was for the children to understand.
I found this was extremely important because teaching a peer versus teaching a student or a child is very different. When I taught water field study on week 6, I talked to them like they were adults using larger vocabulary and more advanced topics that they haven't learned yet. And once I figured this out, it just bored them, I really changed my communication style and they really began to listen.
Over the week, we learned about how to better communicate with the children and so that they would listen and understand. My kids in the Lynx cabin often did not listen, but Lilo and I were able to get their attention without having to use many attention grabbers. So one way that we did that was that we let everyone have a chance to talk and come up with ideas for themselves, such as the cabin calls. Cabin calls are songs or cheers that they make about the cabin that they're in.
Like on week 6, we did Pelicans, Pelicans, like from Jurassic Park, which ironically had its own appearance in week 9, where the staff members had it stuck in their head for the following weeks. And so once they saw me on week 9, they did their own interpretation. Cedar Ridge, Cedar Ridge.
These exercises helped create an extremely cohesive feel around the camp, and it made it easier so that the students had a great time bonding, even though they had cliques at home, because they didn't have any cliques at camp. Doing these activities throughout the day, during, after, and before field studies was a great chance for student leaders to bond with the children as well. At the end of the day, after all the activities were done and all the field studies were done, we would go up to the upper campfire to have like a calm down session. Anyone could go up on stage and perform something. They could sing songs to us, or sing repeat after me songs, or do skits. And this is Hemlock and Birdie doing fire stunts. Do pretty much anything. Yeah. And after the next morning, it would all start again.
Outdoor school makes for a really good environment to make new friends and learn in ways that you normally wouldn't be able to or want to at school. It provides a lot of hands-on experience, and it really immerses the kids into nature.
Students that go to outdoor schools are constantly surrounded by nature and get to participate in many activities that enforces the things that they've learned there. Being in nature for 3 to 5 days has the potential to enlighten or even spark interest within the students to maybe have a future job that has to do with the ecosystem, or maybe come back as a student leader.
Both Isaiah and I went to Cedar Ridge specifically, outdoor school, in the 5th grade. Once we found out that we could go back to Cedar Ridge and help out, we immediately signed up for that campsite.
We actually later discovered that our mentor, Pacific Youth, was there when we went in 5th grade. So he's kind of like the principal of the camp, or the camp director, and Boulder, who's sadly not in this picture, is the head administrator, and he is kind of like the vice principal. Boulder makes sure that every single field study that I mentioned before has 1 or 2 staff members. The staff members are in charge of teaching us, the student leaders, everything that we're supposed to teach the 6th graders.
The staff was mostly there to help out the student leaders when it was necessary. But they also did things like set out campfire, made rules that everyone had to follow, and they woke us up in the morning and made sure everyone went to bed at night. At the end of the week, the student leaders were given evaluations.
These evaluations were indicators to whether that student leader did a good enough job meeting the criteria. That included things like leadership, teaching the kids, being adaptive to the time changes, and many other expectations. If you didn't meet the criteria, that means you would get 1 or 2 things. You would either get a return after counseling, which meant that maybe you did something that wasn't appreciated or the staff thought wasn't good. Or you get a no return, which meant that you weren't able to come back in future weeks. Lucas and I both got returns, so that means we were able to come back future weeks.
What I took away from this experience was that camp and educating kids in general was really fun. To watch them get excited about educational games, be able to recite information that I taught them. I think the reason that I came back for the second week wasn't because I needed more hours, which I ended up with just under 300, or because I wanted to specifically volunteer with Isaiah. It was because it was so amazing to be there, to work with the amazing counselors and the amazing students. My SRP was on gene editing, and it relates to our Pacifica because our Pacifica is supposed to spark interest in students and in science. And who knows, it could spark interest and they want to become a geneticist or a doctor of some kind, and they might use CRISPR.
Two things that I took away from outdoor school was all the bonding that happened, and also how much more confident I am at teaching. Before outdoor school, I was not very good at public speaking and also was not very good at teaching children. But after outdoor school, my confidence was extremely boosted and I realized how much I love teaching children. My teaching, one of the things that I loved teaching there was how salmon is a keystone species, because my SRP was on Nature Conservancy in the US. So that goes just right hand in hand.
Thank you for coming, and we are now open for questions.